everyone, it's Pat from Seattle Coffee Gear, and we are here today with another one of our Shootout series. Today we're going to be talking about espresso machines under $1,000. So these are all going to be semi-automatic espresso machines, so they're going to be a little more hands-on than a super auto. But this is a really exciting category, and it has a pretty wide spread of price points. But I think we're going to be able to dive into several of the machines that are really popular in this price range and help you kind of determine which one might be best for you. Spoilers, there is no easy answer to just say, buy this one, buy this one, buy this one. These are all great machines, and they're all really great for different users that are at different stages and want different things from their espresso machine. So we'll go through piece by piece and talk about who these machines are for, and it should be pretty exciting. So let's do a quick features rundown of these machines first. First, we have the DeLonghi Dedica here. So this is going to be the lowest priced offer of these four machines. And this is kind of the machine that is the most affordable machine that I would say is going to deliver you something equating a sort of real hands-on espresso experience. DeLonghi does offer an even more affordable machine, which can be a good way to try to wrap your head around whether you like the workflow of espresso, but the Dedica is going to be the one that's going to start giving you a real espresso experience. The internals of this machine are pretty solid for what it's doing. It does only brew in pressurized baskets, so it's not going to give you the ability to brew unpressurized, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. It also has a Panarello steam wand that's going to kind of flip between a hot milk heating up kind of thing, and then you can slide the sleeve down to get more of a cappuccino foam, but it does not have the more sort of prosumer, commercial, whatever you want to call it, style steam wand that you'll see on these other machines. Otherwise, though, it is a good machine for brewing pressurized espresso, and it's really affordable, and it has a very small footprint. So there's a lot to like about this machine. Next on the list, we have the Solis Barista Perfetta. So this is obviously a machine that we are quite fond of, and it's really because it offers a lot of higher end features and performance in this sort of one, smaller footprint, and two, really affordable price. So this one sits kind of right in the middle of our price range that we're talking about today. So it's going to be a little bit more than the Dedica, but a little bit less than the other machines we're talking about. And it still offers things like the ability to brew with pressurized and unpressurized baskets, so you can get a little more precision from your unpressurized baskets. It's going to give you that sort of closer to a commercial style steam wand that is just the sort of wand that you actually have to kind of learn some technique to steam, but then you're going to be able to sort of do whatever kind of steaming you want. If you want that microfoam for pouring latte art, you can get it off of this steam wand a lot easier than you'll be able to off of a Panarello style wand like here. It's also got the steam gauge, or the manometer gauge on the front for pressures, which is really helpful for diagnosing your shots and trying to figure out how to make them taste better, which is especially important with that unpressurized brewing. So you get all of that, and it's a pretty hands-on machine that's really easy to learn on because it does also have those pressurized baskets, so you can kind of learn how to use it and get really good performance off of it for a really affordable price point. So this one is really great. Next, we have the Breville Barista Express. This is kind of a classic machine. If you've shopped for espresso machines, you've probably seen it before. It's still a really, really solid option in its price range. It combines the grinder with the machine. So it's still very much a semi-automatic machine. You have to manually use the grinder and do the brewing. So it doesn't just do it all for you. However, it is easier to use because it's all kind of built to work together. So with these other machines, you would need a separate grinder to get the most out of them, which, as we'll talk about in the Who Are These Machines For segment, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is really nice that this machine, if it's what you're looking for, contains the machine and the grinder together. You're going to get all of your kind of tools in one spot. You get your tamper here, you get your steam wand here, which is going to give you that sort of more manual control over your steam, and you are going to get your gauge, your pressure gauges and everything. So it's going to give you a similar experience to what you would get off of the Perfetta, but with the grinder included, which may or may not be a big bonus for you. The other thing about this one is it does do the unpressurized and pressurized baskets as well. So you can get that full range of precise brewing that you want if you are kind of into the craft of really tweaking your espresso. Then last but not least, we have the classic Rancilio Silvia. This is the base Silvia model. So they've come out with some more advanced models since this one, but this one's still really solid, and this one does fall kind of just under that $1,000 price point. Their more advanced models do cost more, so that's why we're just looking at this one today. This is probably the closest to the sort of prosumer kind of machine that you're going to find on this list here. These other machines have a lot of like plastic casing, and they have sort of, I don't even want to say cheap or anything, but you can tell that they're designed for sort of newer users, and they have a lot of accoutrements to sort of help you get your feet wet with espresso and understand it and have an easier time of it. This one, on the other hand, is going to be a lot trickier to use from the jump. It has a sort of tricky thermostat in it that can give you like wide swings in temperature. So you have to kind of learn how to account for that as you use it. But it also has some really, really solid construction. It's going to last a really long time. So if you get into the flow of using it correctly and you really learn how to use it, this machine can give you some pretty high-end performance for the price point that it's at. So we'll talk about more what that means compared to these other machines in the next segment. So that's our list of machines. Let's talk a little bit about what separates them and who they might be for. Okay, so we've kind of run down some of the features of these machines. Let's get into a little bit about what makes them different from each other and who they might be for. So in comparison to the other machines on this list, the Dedica is in an interesting spot because while it's the most affordable, it's also going to have the sort of lowest amount of headroom for where you're going to take your espresso going forward. So it's going to kind of brew drinks that taste a certain way, and you're going to be able to get a little bit of different flavors depending on what coffee you use. But ultimately, with the pressurized baskets and the Panarello steam wand, you're going to kind of be making pretty similar beverages on it from drink to drink. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, because if you like the drinks that it makes, then you'll be really happy with it, and it's more affordable than the other machines on this list. However, if your interest in home espresso is to be able to sort of experiment with lots of different recipes, you might find that it's a little more limiting than some of the other machines. I would say that this is a great machine for somebody who is thinking that they want to learn the very basics of espresso, or that they only need the very basics of espresso, and that either they're going to be happy with that for the longer term, or if they're planning on upgrading within a couple of years of purchasing it and kind of developing their workflow. If that sounds like you, I think this is a strong machine, and I think it's a pretty good value for what it offers. Compared to the Barista Perfetta, though, it does make this machine pretty compelling, because the price difference is not that severe between them, and you get a lot more headroom for developing your espresso brewing practice over time with the Barista Perfetta. This is a machine that you could start with a pressurized basket and then over time learn to dial in more effectively and jump up to that unpressurized basket. And with the steam wand, that gives you a little bit more control too, you can start making some really impressive drinks with the Barista Perfetta. You can start getting into different kinds of espresso drinks, different kinds of recipes. You're going to be able to make your cortados, your flat whites, your cappuccinos, your lattes, and do them in a style that you really like. Whereas on something like the Dedica, you're going to be looking at doing espresso shots with hot milk or with very foamy, like cappuccino style foam drinks. And the Perfetta gives you a lot more sort of room to play with a lot of different stuff. We've also found the performance of the Perfetta to be really strong over time too. So with the Dedica, it's not that it's a unreliable machine necessarily, but given its price point, given what you're looking at, it's probably not going to last you an enormous amount of time, and you're going to think about replacing it or upgrading it at some point after you get it. The Perfetta is not necessarily going to last you decades either, but it's a very strong machine over time that we found manages to hold up on the performance side, even compared to newer machines that have come out after it. So we're really big fans of this machine, and I think, again, if you want that very simplistic use the Dedica is still a good option. If the price difference is a deal breaker for you, the Dedica is not a bad machine in any way, but the Perfetta does offer a lot for the jump in price. The one thing that both of these machines require, though, is a separate grinder. We actually think that this is something that's good for a lot of users, because with both of these machines, you could start with your basic coffee grinder and use that with a pressurized portafilter. The pressurized portafilters are designed to work well with sort of more affordable slow brew grinders so that you don't need a specialized espresso grinder. From there, if you have the Perfetta, you could try upgrading to a nicer, or not even necessarily nicer, but a more espresso-focused grinder so that you can brew with the unpressurized baskets. What's cool about that is if you find that you really, really, really love espresso and you want to get into a fancier, more expensive machine, now you have a grinder that you can use with that machine, and you can kind of upgrade those things independently. So we really like that ability. However, if you want a machine that's going to provide some similar performance to the Perfetta, but has the grinder built in, you can go with something like the Barista Express. So I would say it's tough to say between these two machines which is going to make better drinks. There's not really a way for you to say that. You have to just kind of use them yourself and see which one you like more. But what is nice about the Barista Express is that it does have the grinder built in, and the grinder is a pretty solid option to work with this specific espresso machine. You could theoretically upgrade to a separate, different grinder, but then you have a larger footprint with kind of no point. So the Barista Express is what we found a really good option for people who just want to buy one thing and be ready to go with their espresso. And then from there, maybe they'll consider upgrading to a different all-in-one system or upgrading their entire espresso setup at once. And the Barista Express makes a really good argument for being able to do just that. So also a really good option if you want that all-in-one sort of experience. And then we've got the Rancilio Silvia. So the Silvia, like I said, is arguably the most prosumer machine on this list, or the closest to it. It's going to offer aspects that are more similar to more expensive machines from companies like Escasso or the more expensive Silvia line, which is really cool. You're getting the casing, the build quality is really, really high. This machine probably could last you quite a long time if you maintain it properly, but you're also going to have to get used to using it. It's got a pretty big learning curve. So what I would say this machine is for, who I would say this machine is for, is somebody who is really interested in the hobby aspect of espresso brewing and wants to get started with a machine that's going to give them that ability to experiment and requirement that they're going to have to learn how to use the machine with a pretty big learning curve, but doesn't want to jump in at the $1,500, $2,000 level of espresso machine. If that sounds like you, this machine is probably really good for you, and you may not need to upgrade from it for quite some time if you end up getting comfortable with it. However, I have seen people who want to get into espresso, they try out a Silvia, and then they don't end up being that happy with it because it can be so difficult to learn to use compared to the other machines. It's not necessarily something I say to scare you off of the Silvia, because it's a great machine, but just be aware that you may run into situations where you feel like something is wrong because it's really hard to get the perfect espresso. And the real reason that it's happening is just because you haven't really practiced with the machine enough, and that you need to practice more dialing in your grinder and with managing the temperature levels in the Silvia. So great machine, high learning curve, and it'll last a very long time as long as you can kind of get used to that learning curve. So on the whole, what we kind of come down to is each of these machines is going to be really great for a different user. It's hard to say which one is going to be perfect for you. Obviously, that's something that we can talk you through and help you with if you communicate with us. But it's really going to come down to whether you're looking for something that's going to get you to an espresso drink really quickly, but maybe and affordably, but maybe without the kind of customization that some people would like. If you want something that's just an all-around really solid, high-performing option at an affordable price, if you need that grinder built in to kind of make it all work for you, or if you want something that's a little more finicky and prosumer but going to last a long time. So I hope that has helped you looking at your machine options under $1,000. There's some other ones that we didn't touch on, but some of them have some similarities to these, so we thought this was a pretty good sampling. If you have any questions about these machines or other machines, make sure you drop them below. Be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and get subscribed for more of our different Shootout series coming over the rest of the year. Thanks.